what was the last days of Abiola like? Because I learned you were somewhere in the UK. You used to live in London in those days, and somebody called you and said something wants to happen in Nigeria. Can you recall those moments when a blind man called you one morning? You were, what was that moment? Did you have a
premonition? Before then, I had a premonition that Abiola was going to die. I had left Nduka Obegbena's house. He was staying somewhere off Park Lane in London. Myself and Tokuba Tukuyomi, we left him very early morning. I was going to my house in Hampstead and Tokuba was going to his house in Southgate. So we walked from Nduka's house to Marble Arch, where we picked a black cab. And we bought the first edition of Sunday Times of London that day. And inside it was a story. As we opened, we saw a story on Abiola. The reporter had come to Nigeria with Kofi Annan to see Abiola, and he was describing the condition under which they met Abiola, that the condition was bad. By then, General Absalami Abubakar had taken over after the death of Abacha. And he described that Abiola was in a squalid situation. He was watching television, but they had removed the volume. There was no voice. And he was watching the World Cup. It was during the World Cup at the time. So I felt so bad. I thought what we were hearing was that Absalami and Abiola were eating together and blah, blah, blah. So I told Tokumbo, I said, I don't think they want to release that deal. We called Abiola Daddy. I said, I don't think they want to release that deal. He said, why do you think? I said, what I'm reading now, so I gave it to him. He read it too. He said, Dele, maybe you are right. Then that morning, incidentally, Wura Abiola called me. She said she was on her way to do something at Cambridge. So then I told her what I read in the newspaper and started crying. I said, haven't we failed our daddy? Does it mean we can't rescue him? I said, so what can we do now? What would you suggest we do? I said, I don't know. I said, okay, when she gets back from Cambridge, she will call me again. Then I called a friend who was working at LTV8, Mrs. Funkemo. So I called Funke. I said, Funke, I used to discuss a lot of politics with her. I said, Funke, I'm very worried. I think Abiola is going to die. He said, Dele, Obere. How can you talk like that? Who will kill Abiola? I said, my mind is telling me that Abiola will die. He said, nobody. This was on July 5th. It was a Sunday. I will never forget. Abiola died on July 7th. I think it was a Tuesday. So on Sunday. So then, to cut a long story short, on July 7th, early morning, a few minutes after 7, I got a call from a blind man called Yinka Biduni. He was working with Spectrum Radio in London, so he called me. He called me frantically. Then when I picked, because I was still sleeping, I was drowsy. So I said, Mr. Ibiduni, how are you, sir? He said, they want to kill your father, you are sleeping. I said, who wants to kill my father? He said, have you not heard? I said, heard what? He said, they want to kill your father. He will not believe it. Abiola had not yet died though. He said, didn't you listen to BBC World News just now? I said, I didn't. He said, He said they've just interviewed two Americans, Thomas Pickering and Susan Rice, and that in the interview they asked them, what are you doing in Nigeria after Kofi Annan and Chief Emeka Yaku had come to plead with Abiola to forget his mandate? He said, we have also come to plead with him to forget the mandate. So, but what if he says no to you the same way he said no to the people who came before? He said, their response was, he would have become a danger to Nigeria. And so that was how he added 1+1, and he concluded that, maybe the man will die. Because if he becomes too stubborn and they see that he's not ready to change his mind, then he will not. And by which time already anyway, Abacha died a month earlier. So towards afternoon, Wura and I started discussing again. So we agreed that we were going to issue a press release the following day and plead with human rights community, especially Gani Fawemi and Falana and others, that they should please allow Abiola take any precondition and come home. The last fax, the final draft came out of my fax machine at 4:03. I will never forget, 4:03 p.m. in the afternoon. And Abiola died at 4 p.m. So which means at the time Wura was struggling to put the thing through the fax machine, Abiola was already on his way to heaven. As soon as the press release came, Wura called me, and I was hearing a lot of noise. Yeah, yeah, daddy, oh, yeah. And I'm like, what's going on? Have they released him? My mind was on release, not on death. And then, one of the daddy, oh, they said they have killed daddy, oh. Who killed who? Please call our friends at Sky News and find out if they heard anything. My wife sat like this. I was sitting and we were looking at each other. And she was like, what's going on? I said, they said they've killed daddy. He said, who killed him? I said, how can you ask me? I'm sitting in front of you, you're asking who killed Abiola. So I said, okay, before I even phone anybody, let me put on our television. So I switched on the television. Sky News. I'm breaking news. Nigeria's Moshood Abiola is dead. My life died immediately. So I called Wura back. I said, yeah, it's true. It's on Sky News already. Then total bedlam everywhere. Everything had gone crazy. My phone started ringing. People, news agencies from Italy, from London, from CNN, everybody calling me, to ask if I had heard and to confirm to them what. So I quickly dressed up. I went to Abiola's house in Chester Terrace, around Regent's Park, where I met most of the children of Simbiat. Deji, Agbola, Bolaji, and Wura. I met Tokunbo Chijuade with them. They were neighbors, It was such a sad day. It was such a sad day. And then, so we linked up with Chief Bola Tinubu and others, who were our organs in Nadeco. And so it was decided that Tokunbo Yomi and I should be the guinea pigs to go to Nigeria to, one, commiserate with the family and then come back to report on the situation of things back home. So I came with Tokunbo and it was so sad to see where Abiola was buried. I couldn't imagine. To look at the grave was a problem for me because I was one of the last people to talk to Abiola the night he was arrested. We had brought him out from Senator Wahab Zumu's house in Surulere. Then we went somewhere to do a rally at Shita Playground. Yeah. From where he drove in a convoy to his house on Moshood Abiola Crescent in Toyin Street. And he told me to go home. For about 48 hours, I had not changed my dress, I had not had a bath. We were planning how to bring, because that was when he disappeared. And so we were planning how
after the
to get him after the declaration.
Okay.
So, and then he said I should go home and come back in the night. So I think I came about 9 o'clock. And by then the police had surrounded his house. And they were not allowing anybody to come out or to go in. I tried to persuade them that I must enter. They didn't allow me. So I went to a business. In those days we didn't have phones like today. So I went, there was a business center on Allen Avenue. And I went there and I put a call through to the house. And the security people connected to Chief that Dele was on the line. And he said, Dele, where are you? I said, I've been at the gate, they are not allowing me to enter. He said, yes, I hear they have surrounded my house. They have told me that they are coming to arrest me at about 1 a.m. But I don't think Sonny can try it. Those were the last words he spoke to me. He never believed that Abacha could arrest him. And then, so, just go home and rest. Go and stay with your wife. And I went back home, I couldn't sleep, I was restless. Then the following morning I saw in I think it was the Guardian newspaper, they had a third edition. And those days were hot.
Third edition.
Third edition. Yes.
That's crazy.
Breaking news. Moshood Abiola arrested. So, what are we going to do? No idea. My wife and I, we got married in
92.
92,
Yeah,
and this was 94. So she was pregnant with our first child, and when Abiola was arrested, he smuggled out some letters. One of them was to Dr. Doyin Abiola, and I was shocked that he was still asking about me.
Asking about you?
Yes. How is Dele? How is his wife? And he told Dr. Abiola to bring me, to arrange for me to come and meet him in Gashua. They first moved into Gashua prison that I should come and disguise and come with a camera and a recorder. And so I went home and told my wife. My wife panicked. Are you sure you want to go? I said, if Abiola asked me to enter fire, I was ready to. You know, I said it was there for us. It's always been there for us. It's still even asking after you in detention to know about how you are progressing with your pregnancy. I said we can't abandon such a man, and she said she agrees that I should go, that God will go with me. So I was to fly to Maiduguri and then drive through Damaturu to Gashua. So on my way, I called Dr. Abiola that I was already on my way, and she told me that they have moved him, and I never saw him again. He died, never.
They've moved him.
They've moved him.
That's a very sad one.
So
Hi.
The next thing was one day I went to see, so I was worried. So I used to go to different people to see what can we do to get him freed. So I went to see Chief Segun Oshoba in Abeokuta. And I was coming back. This was in July 95.
1995.
A year after Abiola was arrested.
Yes.
So I went to see Chief Oshoba. And then the following morning, I was driving back home in Lagos. Then I saw my wife's car along the way. So I stopped. Madam, what are you doing? They said she was hoping that that on my way home I will see her. That I can't go home. I said, why can't I go home? I said, some 4 men came to the house this morning to warn her that I should disappear. I said, disappear? What happened? I said, just disappear. That Abacha is looking for you. They believe you are one of the brains behind the pirate radio station, Radio Freedom at the time, before it became Radio Kudirat. I said, so what's the problem? When she told me the name of one of the people, I knew it was serious. I turned back. From that day till today, I never entered the house again.
You never know the address again. You don't even know.
Never. And I turned back and I had to now plan how do I get out of Nigeria. But if they had captured me alive, I'll be dead. So, because they would just torture me for nothing. And I knew nothing about the radio at the time. It was later I knew about it, but at that stage, no, I didn't know. And I had to go into a bunker. I had to go and hide in a bunker. And now I can say it confidently. The guys who just left now, they are all Babylonians. I was hiding in their house. You can see life.
That's crazy.
20-something years after.
Yes, they are still around you.
We're still around ourselves and we're friends.
Yeah.
So, it was crazy. July 22nd
I could imagine, sir.
was the day. Then I managed to escape on July 25 through the Seme border to Cotonou. From there, I went to Togo, from Togo to Ghana.
So what are the things you did in the course of escaping?
I had to dress just like a farmer going to his farmland, and I had 3 people accompany me: Captain Rotimi Seriki, Kunle Bakare, and one of the Orologbawe brothers, Bola, the one.
Yeah.
So that was how I escaped.
So what was going through your mind then?
Oh, of course. By the time I crossed to Cotonou side, I started crying. Then I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know if I would get there. I didn't know when I would get there. I didn't know if I would ever come back to Nigeria. I was weeping like a baby. You know, but God had His plans for me, and that's why I can never be vindictive. When people say, "Oh, why don't you fight the Abacha?" Fight when God has fought your battle. Don't waste your time. Every now and then, people fight against me for no just cause, for no reason, and I leave them to God. People say, you are still talking to this one. I said, why not? No, the tongue and the mouth do fight. You can't. Vengeance belongs to God. I can tell you spiritually, God has lifted me to that height where I don't care about what people say or what people do. Or no, I remain there. I fix my gaze only unto the Lord. The Yorubas have a saying, you cannot be carrying an elephant on your head. You are carrying an elephant on your head, yes, and you are worrying about ants on the floor. No. When you are carrying an elephant
on your head,
you worry less about
the
little things.
Even if they are stinking you just allow them be.
So that's just who I am, and I thank God for it.